away off my eyes, and I put it on his forehead.
Listening to Let Your Voice Be Heard.
It's a logical fallacy, and I know that, but, you know, as always, and maybe the rest of the panel can tell you, I play a bit of the devil's advocate because I am the lone black Republican up here.
He just made a fool out of himself. I mean, you can look at Dennis Rodman and think he's making a fool out of himself.
You know Barack Obama, what he was like, anti-war, government...
Boy, that escalated quickly.
I got to jump into a rally to save a hospital here in Brooklyn in just a minute.
I stopped working on my dissertation the second my grandmother died. I am a blazing liberal who can have a Republican-leaning ideology to give me enough beers. No, I got to get you that Illuminati thesaurus. Once you get that, you're going to be able to speak in the same language I can speak.
Now, a white person with a criminal record is more likely to get a job than a black person without one.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
The point of financial stability and economic justice is that you're free from confines of society and you have more freedom and to make your own choices.
Just in general, people who have money tend to have more access to resources to be able to use in their defense versus people that don't have money. So you see a lot of, lower, and that's really a class issue, and race does come into play.
This is Let Your Voice Be Heard, right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Guys,
we are on. Welcome to Let Your Voice Be Heard.
I'm sorry, Selena. I didn't know that.
You can finish.
Oh, WHCR, the voice of Harlem, Selena.
Wait, where am I?
I think Carlos was a little distracted for a minute.
Right.
But yes, we are all here. We'll let your voice be heard. Well, at least me, Stanley, Carlos. We are here. We're waiting on Jason Eligio. He will also be here. And we thank you for being here with us. Every Sunday, as you know, we talk about foreign policy, politics, social justice, and what matters in your life right here on WHCR from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And it is a beautiful Sunday. How was your Sunday so far, Carlos?
You know what? I have to admit, it's, I woke up really early, had some good cereal. Trader Joe's makes a fantastic cereal. I don't know what they put in it, but it's just delicious. Made myself some coffee, got myself a bagel. General upbeat. I'm trying to keep myself upbeat because
right.
it's been a rough week for
right.
on my neck of the woods. But you know what? I have a lot of things to look forward to. As you know, I'm finishing my second week as ombudsperson.
Oh wow!
And it's going. It's actually going very well. It's very. Wow. You're doing the right thing when CCNY Secrets praises you instead of calls you a bunch of names that I shouldn't broadcast in public radio.
Congratulations to you, Carlos. Do you want to give yourself an introduction or let people know where you are on Twitter?
Sure thing.
Or not? Because I can't even find you on Twitter.
He is the Batman of CCNY Secrets.
Right.
Like I'll go on CCNY Secrets and go, ombudsperson, I need your help. My tuition's acting up, and all of a sudden he'll pop up. I am here.
My city needs me.
That was a good voice.
Yeah, my name is Carlos Pezmino. I'm the current student ombudsperson of CCNY.
Wow.
I basically am like the student lawyer. If there's ever any issues that kind of come up, they can talk to me in my office at room 1105. And, I'll try to make sure that I can address their issues. It's a job that certainly has had a lot of time to really process through. The last ombudsperson was there for like 3 years. I'm going to only be there for one term, but I want to make sure that I define a little bit more about the power and the reach of the ombudsperson. My bylaws they're very limited. The last ombudsperson had a little bit of a radical note to his job,
and you don't.
I have a different form of radicalism. I want to make sure that my office, leaves, when I leave my office, that I will have at least a stronger position in student government than than from when I actually like walked into
Well,
it.
look at you making a difference.
Well, you gotta. It's a big school, city college. I have 20,000 people that basically need some form of representation, and it's very easy to fall through the cracks.
Speaking of representation, we have Santa Man here who represents for the Harlemites.
You sound like you just don't want to admit that, Selena. That's right, yo. I don't know what's wrong with my headphones, but I sound so great right now. So I'm just
it's something wrong with your headphones.
So I am.
What?
It sounds. You don't understand. It sounds so theatrical.
There's an extra bass or something that you added to it. I don't know what it is, but I can hear it.
My voice has never sounded this manly, and I want to enjoy it.
God.
But I am your favorite engineer and also your favorite author now. Well, I was already an author, but still. Second book, Confessions of a Sucker for Love, is out, and if you guys like me to talk about politics, you can follow me on Twitter, Darkskin Swindle, Instagram, Darkskin Swindle. In life, I'm not going to tell you where I live, but I'm happy to be here as usual.
On Instagram, you're Darkskin Swindle now?
Yeah, put it back.
Oh, no more Waka Flocka Stan. Waka Flocka Stan.
What was it? S Fritz 86 or something like that?
No, it was Waka Flocka Stan.
It was Stan Zaddy.
Stan Zaddy, that's what it was.
At one point, I was a thought whisperer.
Stop.
I was the thought whisperer.
You know what, Stanley? Your ratchet names, I mean, they're hilarious, but whatever.
By the way, I think we should all just kind of take a moment and realize that we're having a little bit of a Z reunion right now. We're
right,
that's right. That would be lost on everybody. Oh my gosh. Now, I am here now, so I guess I'll announce myself. This is Jason Calderon-Eligio. I was on Brooklyn time, so I forgive my lateness. 5 minutes ahead, but somehow always 10 minutes late. You can follow me, or rather, you can follow Stan on Twitter, Black Lex Luthor. And what can I tell you? All around good guy, favorite Black Republican, and always glad to be a part of the show.
Very smart man. I call him Politics Yoda. I call him for everything. All right. If people ask you, he's my mentor. He doesn't even know.
Oh God!
I really don't know about it.
I'm Carlos's mentor. I teach him nothing though.
You know what, guys? I wanted to save the best for last. I usually go first, but I'm here with all you guys. Literally, like the guys. I am the only. I know. Like, I knew that I was gonna have this. Like, we usually have all females and then Stanley, but today we have an all-guy show except for me, Selena Hill.
Before you go, can I say something? This may just be you as a woman, the only woman here, but the playlist today is all for you.
Really? Can I just say, I want to commend you. We started off with Chief Keef's Sosa, which was my favorite song in 2012. So, like, thank you for that, Stanley, and I guess we'll probably get to some Beyonce. Yeah, I'm not surprised. So, yes, my name is Selena Hill on Twitter and Instagram. It's Miss Selena Hill. I do not change my name, so it's always MS Selena Hill, of course.
What's with the shade?
No, what? You took that a shade?
I thought the shade was in me. I wouldn't even know how to change my name.
Yo, you shady.
Yes, he does. Jason was just tweeting at What's Eating Harlem on Thursday. I saw that, Jason. That was you tweeting at What's Eating Harlem.
Oh, well, speaking of that. So we actually have a great show lined up. We're starting off with talking about Common Core education and standardized testing, and we have a really good guest. I mean, I don't know if it's almost like a surprise because I haven't been necessarily like promoting it as because she called in, but she confirmed last minute. But we have a big guest who will be calling in on the line, who Stanley will introduce in a few more moments.
Right.
And we'll also just be leading a conversation and almost a debate because from my understanding there's a lot of nuances just attached to Common Core education and of course standardized testing. And the reason why we're talking about it is because a new study came out and it shows that about 90 New York City public schools fail to pass not even one Black or Hispanic student on the 2014 statewide math and reading exams.
Yeah,
so that was a blowout.
And for you Harlem folks, PS 194, PS 50, PS 202, and PS 33. Congratulations, the 4 horsemen of failure.
Wow. I mean,
PS 194, 7th year in a row.
Whoa.
That's
yeah, it's definitely a shame, and we're definitely going to talk about it in depth here on Let Your Voice Be Heard. Later on, we'll also be talking about the celebrity photo leaks. Now, if you've been searching and sharing and, feel a little ashamed about trying to find out these women and see them naked, I think you should be. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to cast that much shame. But we are going to have a really important discussion about cyberbullying, invasion of privacy, women's rights. I mean, this topic brings up so many other subtopics within the conversation. And the thing is, even though it happened to 101 celebrity women, it happens all the time to regular women. And it's something called revenge porn, something that we talked about last year. And we have actually the same guest who talked about revenge porn. She's been an advocate about talking about having especially celebrity women have some type of privacy. Like, there's no reason why hackers should be targeting these women and exposing them in this way. And, we're going to talk about the legality surrounding this issue. And then, last but not least,
I'll be talking about Ferguson, giving you guys an update, and also telling you what the next plan of action should be for Ferguson. Everybody, a lot of people are going out there now to help to mobilize and to organize and to talk to people, and people are still tweeting about it, but media isn't paying as much attention.
Yeah, it's dropped out the news for the last few days, actually.
Yep, and I'm going to flip the table for you guys later today.
I'm ready for that table flipping.
Right, so we have a great show lined up, and of course, you guys can always let your voice be heard by tweeting us at BeHeard_radio, and of course, calling in without using curse words at 212-650-6903. Last week, we had to cut a caller off because they decided to drop the N-word.
Oh,
the N-bomb.
That's
the N-bomb.
unfortunate.
So, you know what? We want you to let your voice be heard, but you do have to do it with some censorship. Okay, on that, we're going to go to No Flex Zone, which I'm, happy about. But we'll be right back on Let Your Voice Be Heard.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Hell no, you can't use my lip gloss. Pop a perk, now I'm on lift off. Still fattest on Rick Ross. You nigga south. Like I'm at tip off. Get it wet, then I rub the tip on. Rag and bone jeans, I can slip off. Big, I've been hot since flip phones.
Praise Hallelujah, everybody. This is DJ Flame, and I'm your host every Wednesday from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. on the Anointed Mic Check, where we take beats back to Jesus, bringing you the best in urban gospel music where you hear hip-hop, R&B, house, remixes, the Caribbean flavor, artist interviews, reviews, and so much more, whatever God just drops in my spirit. Now, I'm your host every Wednesday mornings from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. Don't forget, the show is the Anointed Mic Check, and this is where we serve up urban gospel at its best. See you then.
Hi, this is Maurice Watts, better known as The Voice, and your radio host of The Love Zone, reminding you that this Friday night, I need you to stop on by my place, The Love Zone, from 8 p.m. until the stroke of midnight, where you will hear some of the best R&B love songs of today and yesteryear. That's right, we take you from 1948 and bring you all the way up to the present, baby. Been serving you your love for over 22 long years, so hey, mark your calendar. This Friday at 8, you and I have a date. I'll see you there.
For each other.
No flex zone. No flex zone. They know better. They know better. No flex zone. No flex zone.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
I hate when I play the same song.
I think you did that for me.
It's a good song. No complaints there.
No complaints, but Selena, there's more songs for Selena. This is the Selena playlist. If Selena could make a playlist that she would ask me for at the last minute, it would have all of these songs.
You know me so well.
Yeah. So anyways, guys, we're back on Let Your Voice Be Heard on 90.3 FM, WHCR, the voice of Harlem. And guess who's talking about Common Core? Me.
Oh, boy.
You're the big guest.
That's right. I'm the big guest.
Unfortunately.
I read books and I know math and I'm smart like that. No, I'm not. I know none of those things. But we are talking about Common Core, and we're going to have a nice panel discussion with a couple of surprise callers involved in there too. But what I really want to happen is for our listeners who have children or who have friends or spouses with children, family members with children, please listen to this, because more than likely it affects you, because Common Core is in at least 40 states right now. That's 40 states in the U.S. So call in if you have any questions, concerns, no curse words, no N-bombs. I used to say questions, concerns, and curse words, but for 2 weeks in a row, someone has called in and dropped the N-word or a curse word. So
yeah, pretty much.
That was always a joke, guys. So, anyways, I got some information for you right now, and because I just learned how to read, I want to share you my skills of reading through my form right here. So, what is Common Core? Common Core is the state standards. Common Core state standards are a new set of academic standards adopted by 43 states. It's now 40 because 3 states dropped out. And the idea of it is that before Common Core, every state kind of had their own opportunity to make their own standards. And because of that, you would see like the levels of children's education fluctuating depending on where you went. For example, when we were in high school, it was a very well-known fact that if you went to Pennsylvania or to Florida, you didn't need reasons to graduate. You didn't even need algebra in Florida to graduate. That was not like a core class. You did not have to take math to graduate from high school if you went to Florida or to Texas, some parts of Texas. So, and what the federal government found from that was, it is very difficult to kind of like see where every child is when they're all on entirely different planes. So a child who has a 4.0 in Wyoming might come to New York and get a 2.2 because they don't need to know how to read. That's not a real thing. Like they need to know how to read in Wyoming. I was giving an example. So, and then because of this, they've noticed that the U.S. children, the U.S. people in general, were trailing far behind pretty much every modern and some unmodernized nation in the world as far as education. At one point, we were at the middle of the pack, and we are slowly mostly quickly just falling down further.
I know we're lagging far behind with Finland.
Yeah. Finland is pretty much
Finland is number one.
That is standard now.
Okay, so everybody's lagging behind Finland. We're lagging far behind Finland and the rest of the Scandinavian.
We're lagging behind, I forgot the name of this one country in particular where like they're not as developed as us, and we're lagging behind them. I think Vietnam.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
but not surprising,
bad.
Actually. Not surprising.
It's that bad. So what they're trying to do is A, help children to catch up, and B, also to make sure that every child is ready for college. Right. Because like in New York City, 70% of high school graduates that go to college need to take remedial courses.
Hey, Stanley, I guess you can say we're not leaving any child
Yes, exactly. So I am going to talk about that, but just like kind of like make sure we stick to the Common Core explanation thing. Right. So what they did was a group of teachers and administrators came together to start writing this curriculum, which was called the Common Core now. And the idea of it was that they wanted to radically change the way that children were taught in these schools, because they were noticing that kids would go to these schools and they would know how to take a test or they would know how to spit out information, but they could not think critically, and they did not understand how they got their answer. In particular in math, you ask a kid what's 2 + 2, he says 4. You say why? He says because 2 + 2 is 4. That's not really helpful, and that's not how you create somebody who has a strong foundation of information so they can be engineers like Jason and dreamy good guys like Carlos and like radio personalities like Selena. If you want to be like me and drink Hennessy and play no Flex Zone, you don't need an education. But if you want to be like these guys, you need it. So Common Core for English, what it does is says instead of like having essays based on what I did this summer, it is more opinion, it is more like persuasive, forcing you to explain yourself and think critically. It has an emphasis on non-fiction books. So non-fiction means, you know, like it gives you a broader range of books that you can work with, and also it has like different passage points for every single grade, like ideas of like what a child should know or where they should be for every single grade. So a kid who's in kindergarten, who's just learning their alphabets, they should be able to like understand the alphabets, but also know what like each word is and why.
Right.
So that's for English. And for math, which has been the most controversial, it takes an emphasis away from learning formulas and more so on understanding the core principles, which is why you see on the internet and on Facebook, on Twitter, you have all these parents getting pissed off because it's like 2 + 2 and it's 6 sticks and there's a hurricane, there's a comet, and it's like, what kind of math is this? It's too complicated. Well, actually, and we actually shared a video to understand Common Core math on our Twitter page. It should be going up by 11:30. But what this does is breaks it down in the simplest form so you can understand the basic structure of the problem. And the idea is if children understand the basic structure of the problem, they have a stronger foundation to progress logically to harder formulas. So if you were someone like me who you learned multiplication and division by memorization, and when you got the 7th and 8th grade and they were talking about AX + B, you were lost forever. Common Core hopes to circumvent that and get rid of that. So that's what the Common Core curriculum is, and it gives teachers flexibility to kind of create their own curriculum around that. The federal government comes into play because, like I said before, they saw that they were having these standards from all these different states that weren't the same. So they said, listen, we got $4.14 billion, and we will give your state money if either you A, implement the Common Core curriculum, or you B, implement a curriculum that shows that it prepares students to go into college. It just so happens that most states were either lazy or was just like whatever, and they submitted the Common Core curriculum. Other states submitted their own, but it didn't qualify, and then they got that grant money. And along with that, the government took another $2 billion and gave it to two separate not-for-profits to create tests that they could use to see how well children were doing with standardized testing in Common Core. And herein becomes the problem. So,
I have a question, Professor Stanley. Who profits from the standardized testing?
I don't know. I don't have the answer for that one for you.
So
there's two. Oh, I can give you this. I can give you the names of the two organizations that the U.S. that the U.S. government gave a grant to create these Common Core tests. And just give me 1 second for that.
Sure.
And I will let you know.
I guess the point of my question was really just to kind of bring up a little problem that we have with the Common Core. I'm one of the people that supports having national standards, and I do think having Common Core is a necessary tool to reform our educational system, and it also brings up the idea that we can also reinvest in our schools again.
Absolutely.
That is entirely the problem that we've had in this country, and that's why we're lagging so behind. We have an emphasis in not really investing in our education, not really investing in our infrastructures. The problem, though, is that when you emphasize a national program with a with a consistently privatized industry, like the standardized testing industry, you are going to marginalize certain groups.
Well, I actually have to interrupt you for 1 second because the organizations that were picked to create
they're non-profit.
They're both not-for-profits.
They're non-profit, absolutely. The problem is that they base their exams off of the models of McGraw-Hill, who basically set up all the testings that kind of come about. For example, the ELA, the CMT in New York City, the GRE, the LSATs, et cetera. They function in a way where they have the model. They try to teach all the students around how to take those tests, and it becomes an amplified version of teaching to the test. And I don't think necessarily that's what we're kind of trying to aim with having kids learn more critical thinking. I think we're trying to teach them how to think critically when they're taking exams.
Yeah.
But in a real world application in a globalized economy, a kid from China, a kid from France is not going to necessarily agree with the way that you can deduce an answer in a multiple choice test.
All right, so thank you for that point. We're gonna go back to that, but I just want to tie everything back in now, which is why Common Core became such an issue over here.
Mm-hmm.
So Common Core was implemented in 2010. That's when the first test came in around 2011, and a strong majority of the children who did well on their examinations the year before did dramatically poorer this year with the Common Core standards in there, which automatically ticked off parents who were like, what happened to my kids, and ticked off teachers because it's like, well, I get graded on these things on my teacher evaluation because we all know 3% of all New York teachers are deemed ineffective teachers. Now, this is hurting their grade, or as my sister says, if the highest score you can get in evaluation is 91 and she gets a 90, why is she only a satisfactory teacher? Because the kids not every single child in her class improved. That's a real conversation she and I had.
Right.
So that's where teachers became upset. Unions became upset because they felt that education reformers came up with Common Core as a way to make kids do worse, which is why there would be a big push to reform education, push out unions, and implement more charter schools where you don't have union teachers, i.e. Wright versus New York, where a lot of the unions are saying that they're trying to destroy teacher tenure, et cetera, et cetera. So this past year will be the third year in which we have Common Core curriculum, the fourth year in which we have Common Core curriculum, and the fourth year where implementation has been going on. Because of all the backlash, New York State in particular decided not to count these scores towards a child's grade. All right? And this year, I think it was actually 75, Selena? 75 New York State public schools?
There's two different statistics. I think that the one with the 75 is a different statistic than the one that I'm referring to.
Oh, okay.
So you can give yours.
All right, so I'll say 75 of the schools, they got 0% of the kids passing, which means that no child in that school got higher than a 2.
Right.
So a 3 is passing, 4 is above average, they got no higher than a 2. And there were about 25 schools, PS 194 in particular, it's on 144th Street between 7th and 8th Avenue. Every single child who took a test in that school, 3rd through 6th grade, failed.
Wow.
Completely.
God.
Jason?
What is going on?
I've been silent the entire time because I'm taking in so much information and processing it independently. However, what is that indicative of? When you get down to the brass tacks of it, all right, we have this issue of educational reform. Now, is this an issue of identifying the socio and economic inequity, which is probably at the cause of why that particular school in question has scored so poorly, and how so many schools in this particular geographic region have failed so poorly? Or is it just revealing the flaw that if one was to take the other side of the argument, is inherently appendant to Common Core. Is something in of itself wrong with the system or the implementation or the application of it?
Well, that's a threefold answer for that one. Before I answer that, I want to say the number to call if you have any questions or concerns or comments is 212-650-6903. Again, that is 212-650-6903, or you can tweet us at BeHeard_radio. So I will say this. Common Core was implemented in 2010, but that was also during the time when the huge recession was still happening, and so a lot of schools were more focused on their budgets. So the schools that started working on curriculum for Common Core right away, 7 out of 10 times, their children have done a lot better. It's really been the schools that either did not implement it right away or have not put in the most effort. Mm-hmm. Now, let's take a step back. That doesn't necessarily mean that these schools are not focused. It doesn't necessarily mean that these schools weren't doing what they had to do. It could have just been situations. However, these schools that we're mentioning before were not just doing bad when, we're not just this bad with Common Core. They were bad before them, 194, 50, 33, for example. Right. So now that brings in the question of socioeconomic issues. So I can't speak for every school, but I can tell you PS 50 is across the street from East River Houses, and that PS 194 is literally next door, next to Hamilton Houses. But right down the hall in the same building is Success Academy, where the kids in that school, 3rd to 6th grade, are getting record-breaking numbers and test scores. So yes, the socioeconomic does have a role in it, and you cannot ignore that. You cannot, because I come from a neighborhood where you have kids who go into a classroom after seeing somebody getting shot. Right. It's not easy to concentrate. Right. But it's not the end all the be all. I think it's a combination of the socioeconomic issues. I think it's a combination of unfair and failing teaching, and I think it's a combination of just not fully implementing the program. And
honestly,
go ahead, Carlos.
To kind of add on to something, I think one of the major drawbacks that the unions have, and look, I support the unions. I want to make sure that we have a strong union base among teachers, but they need to be a lot more flexible in being able to agree to certain compromises that school reformers are bringing up. I'm not saying that I agree with school reformers entirely. For example, Ava Moskowitz and Arnie Dukan, they've been extremely they haven't been necessarily the most constructive individuals when it comes to actually trying to sit down with the unions and trying to draw out a compromising plan. Yeah. But the unions need to also stop their grandstanding and say some of these methods that we're still advocating for, maintaining teacher tenure almost without any kind of questioning on the quality of the teacher, maintaining safeguarding teacher jobs who are teachers, by the way, who are consistently failing their classes, safeguarding those policies is not helping their cause. It's not helping the actual idea that an education can be as flexible an issue as possible to basically help out the entire population. They're just grandstanding. When you're playing with two sides who just grandstand, you're not going to reach any kind of notable compromise, and you're not going to find any kind of solution.
All right, so thank you for that point, Carlos. I want to hear from Selena and Jason actually, just to get your input. So from what Carlos is saying, do you think that maybe the union needs to relax some and be more open to negotiating with educational reformers?
I mean, I think that always should be the issue, but the thing is, with teachers unions, I feel like they do. I wouldn't want to inflect my opinion there, because they know what they're doing, and I feel like the teachers unions know what they're doing more so, and there is a bit of controversy and conflict between them, but I feel like negotiation is always the best way to solve anything, especially if you're putting the children's interests first. That's
the thing about teachers union, that it's not their job to put the children's interests first.
Oh, you're right, they protect
interests first.
That's very true, though.
That's no shade, that's just real. The parents, the teachers are the ones who pay the union dues. Jason?
No, we're dealing with such a multifaceted issue there. If we're looking at it from the stance of the protection of the teachers' unions, or rather the teachers themselves, of course, you can understand, you can sympathize with the fact they want to continue to protect their jobs. They want to continue to understand that they can teach without the onus being on them to simply teach to the test, as has been historically the case. I mean, we all remember No Child Left Behind, right. How much the pressure was applied to teachers, and some of them who were actually, attempting in good faith to comply with the standards. However, once again, if we go back to the socioeconomic reasons for why are these children failing on many levels, as Stanley cited earlier, in some neighborhoods there are some deep, severe psychological trauma that children are undergoing.
Right.
And anyone who is familiar with the New York City school system, I personally never attended it, but I did see neighbors, I did see people that I knew, and that's another conversation we're going to go into my particular primary education. But the point being, we all know that for many, many years, warehousing of children took place.
Right.
Children with psychological and behavioral issues were housed together with children with real learning disabilities. And what I'm seeing here is just a perpetuation of this sort of passing the buck along and not addressing, once again, what are the underlying reasons why these children are failing.
Right.
And I think we should also add on that in this society, there's no actual conversation about mental health. There's no actual conversation about...
Yeah, there's a stigma attached.
Right.
I mean, we talked about that on the show several times.
And we stigmatize our population from their very youth. You know, by sticking students who are in academic peril with students who have psychological issues, you're perpetuating almost an environment where you're normalizing a lot of the issues that brought up and were instigated for these students. Warehousing doesn't work. And I think having policies that encourage warehousing is something we should be commenting. And that's something, for example, that I don't necessarily, that's why I don't necessarily support Governor Cuomo, and I'm starting to feel a lot more critical of Mayor de Blasio.
Okay.
Carlos, I'm glad you said that. I want to cut you off. So we were going to go on a break, guys, but we have a very special caller online who I want to give a chance to speak. And just as you mentioned your displeasure with Governor Cuomo, guess who just called into the studio?
Wow. Speak of the devil.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Zephyr Teachout.
Is it Governor Cuomo?
Hi, Zephyr.
Hi, Zephyr. Thank you so much for calling in. So before we let you speak, I just want to say that who we have on the line right now is a New York City candidate for governor going up against Governor Cuomo, who is a Democrat in name only.
Wow, that's a big statement.
That was super partisan. Sorry, guys. But anyways, we have Zephyr Teachout, who is speaking, and I guess she wants to make some comments on Common Core and standardized testing. So, Zephyr, let your voice be heard.
Hi, it's so great to be on the show. I'm glad we worked this out just 2 days before the primary, September 9th.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about Common Core. I'm against it. I think we have to halt it. That I think, like a lot of people, I was very attracted to it when I first heard about it, the idea of shared standards and high standards for all of our kids. But in practice, it just brings stress into the classroom because teachers are tested on how kids do. It actually brings stress on the teachers. And as you know, I was a special ed teacher's aide, and now I'm a law professor, and no matter what age you're teaching kids, no person learns well in an environment of stress.
Right.
And the stress is worse because it's come at the same time as Governor Andrew Cuomo has been pushing for cuts to education funding. So, you know, he pushed for $1.3 billion in cuts as one of his first acts as governor.
Right.
And now you have classrooms where you're taking the funding out and putting the stress in. So instead of having 20 kids in a class, you have 35 kids in a classroom. You can't learn in that environment.
Right. Ms. Teachout, question. So, I mean, would it be that simple and easy just to get rid of it? Like, what's an alternative? What should we do if Common Core is that bad and it's hurting our children?
Yeah, I actually, sometimes people ask me about the alternative, and I sort of want to flip the question, which is an alternative approach altogether. Because I think children thrive in small classrooms, when teachers are trusted, when every child can be seen for who they are, and when you have other sources of learning like art and music and sports and counselors. All of those things are actually essential to going from being a kid to being an adult, because we're complicated people, and especially kids from high-stress homes. But you know, all of us need art and music. You know, some kids go to school for art and they stay around for science. But it's an area where you can express yourself, and I think that's so important to have that kind of expression along with, you know, science, math, and reading. And so, but that takes funding, and you can't just put in test after test after test, because these are people, they're kids, they're not little machines.
Ms. Teachout, a quick question, just to clarify again, what would be a policy that you would pass if you were elected governor that would fund a new program of education and that would be able to, create an ulterior to Common Core? Would your program be, for example, funded by taxing, wealthier New Yorkers? Just give us a little concrete.
$1 billion to our kids right now, if you add up all the money, just to be at a constitutional level of our obligations to our kids, so we can have smaller class sizes. And I would get that money from taxing the financial services industry at a fair level. Right now they have so many tax giveaways. It's over $10 billion in tax giveaways to the financial services industry. So we got to close those loopholes. We're not a real traditional Democrat. So, we need to have a progressive tax structure and invest in the things that matter, like our infrastructure and our schools. And then I just want to be clear that there's also, there's evidence of a real racial disparity in the impacts of this high-stakes testing. And bringing this stress into our classroom, treating all kids as if they're just cookie cutter, isn't helping any of our kids. And in fact, right now we have the most segregated schools in the country in New York State. That is not who we are.
Right. And Ms. Teachout, one of the things that is definitely factoring and hurting, especially students of color, is just the social economical backgrounds that they're coming from, and just the fact that they're underprivileged and they just don't have the resources in these schools. Would you put any particular focus on helping the disenfranchised children?
Yeah, I'd actually move more towards the New Jersey model. In New Jersey, they have school funding. And look, I know that as governor, you can't just wave your wand and do what you want, but I have to tell voters where I would approach it and what I would be pushing for, because obviously I have a Assembly, Senate to deal with. But in New Jersey, the funding is targeted towards the schools with the greatest need, and in New York, we don't have that. So instead, you actually see as much as $8,000 more per pupil for the students who come from more advantaged homes. So we have it upside down. It's like our tax system. It's upside down.
Ms. Teachout, I find it a little problematic because New Jersey's current model is very charter. Very charter.
That's not the part of the model
heavy.
I like. No. Just to be clear, it's just about for the public school funding. I'm really committed to traditional public education. I don't want to lift the cap on charters. I'm
when
opposed
you
to
mention New
co-locations.
Jersey, you do understand that Governor Christie has been very, very, very adamant in cutting funding for public schools as well. Both Governor Cuomo and Governor Christie have been they have a very strange solidarity in the way that they're passing their budgets and in the way that they're functioning with public public money. So I find it a little problematic.
This goes back deeper to the old formulas. So the old formulas on which these different governors are based is the traditional formula in New Jersey is much more progressive. This isn't the Christie formula. Don't worry, I share very little with Chris Christie political ideology.
Well, hopefully no Bridgegate's on your side, right?
Ooh.
Just kidding. So we do have to go to break, but Zephyr, thank you so much for calling in, and good luck in the primaries.
I'm so glad I got to talk to your listeners, and I hope people who are at least curious go to my website, go to zephyrteachout.com. My running mate Tim Wu is fantastic. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So, guys, that was Zephyr Teachout. We have to go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about No Child Left Behind, and we have one more special guest calling in.
Oh, yeah.
This is like an 80s sitcom where people will just pop up. This is the growing pains of radio.
Fonzie?
No, Fonzie's not coming.
Aww.
Show me that guy. I'm playing. We'll be back, guys.
No matter what you say, what you do, when I'm alone, I'd rather be with you. Got these other things, I'll be right by your side till 2005.
Okay, hold up, wait a minute, all good, just a week ago. Crew at my house, and we party every weekend. So on the radio, that's my favorite song. Make me bounce around like I don't know, like I won't be here long. Now the thrill is gone. Got no
Hey, this is DJ Justice from the Flavor Zone, Classic Soul and R&B. I'd like to welcome you and yours to every other Saturday right here from 8 p.m. to 12 midnight for some of the hottest songs in R&B and Classic Soul. Let's cry a little, laugh a little, sing a little. Every other Saturday from 8 p.m. to 12 midnight right here at WACR 90.3 FM New York, the voice of Harlem, Flavor Zone, Classic Soul and R&B. DJ Justice, let's go.
And we are
We're back.
What happened?
No, there was a heated behind the scenes conversation continuing along.
the policy issues, obviously affecting Common Core. So as always, we have these very scintillating conversations, and then we get caught off guard. And Stanley is chuckling accordingly.
Oh man,
it is what it is.
We are back on Let's Your Voice. We heard on 90.3 FM WHCR, and we have another special guest online who I want to thank for being so patient with us. We have Cathy Sapeta from the New York's United for Kids. And Cathy, since we got you in here, we've had a pretty lively discussion so far. I just want to get your stance on Common Core. Why or why not?
Great. Hey, thank you for inviting me to this very special event. I'm so happy that Zephyr Teachout is running. So Common Core. I recently had gone for a second degree, a master's in education, to teach English to speakers of other languages. And I remember sitting in one of my classes asking my professor, what is Common Core? And her reply was, it makes you college, career ready, and it's rigorous. And I shrugged my shoulders. I said, well, I went to private school. I know I'm already college and career ready because I already went to college several times before this was even established. And she said, these standards aren't really even developed. And I said, So I continued my degree, and I started my teaching career. And then I came across some anti-Common Core teachers and some parents, and I did some digging. And I had found that these were a set of standards that were foisted upon the states by the federal government. And the way they went about it was developing two quasi-governmental agencies and using money from companies like the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation to get around the federal law. And then when you look at the standards themselves, in many states we actually had higher standards. Standards are good, and I think we should have standards, and we should have something that we perform to. And then you further examine, the standards themselves are bad. There were no experts involved. I almost fell off my chair when I found that out. I mean, to go back to school for 2 years because I wanted to help my English language learner population who actually need this the most. With the No Child Left Behind, that was a flagship aid program to help the disadvantaged. But people who come here for this wonderful American dream that we have and the liberty that we have and the right to pursue happiness and really just establish yourselves, in a better community, I was really shocked when I found out what the Common Core actually was.
Well, Cathy, I want to cut you off for one moment. I have a question for you about the standards. You mentioned that the people who came up with the standards didn't have any experience in the education field. Am I correct with that question?
For that question, yeah, actually, there were no educators at all. There was a panel involved to validate it, but the validation committee, who included James Milgram, he's a math expert, he actually showed us how the math actually leaves the child, in a slower progression, 2 years behind, but yet the program is telling us that it makes you, compatible globally, but it's actually putting you 2 years behind.
Cathy, just really quickly, I'm a bit confused. So I have some information about the Common Core here, actually, and about the people who created it. So what I have here is, and I'll just list the people that were involved in it. It was 2 not-for-profit organizations, and that was a Council of Chief State School Officers, and the other one was, give me 1 second, pardon me, this is what happens when you read things, and it was a coalition of K-12 top education officials, along with the National Education Association, and the American Federation of Teachers. So it was made with 2 not-for-profits, along with 2 of the biggest teachers unions in America. So, I mean, is it unfair to assume that there wouldn't be people who have a background in education if these are the organizations that were involved with creating Common Core?
Yes, and if you go to our website, which is www.nyunited4kids.com, I have experts, including Dr. Peg Luxick. She's been in education for over 37 years. She's worked across all grade levels. Common Core is not something that's new. It's just a rebrand of something that's, more of a very, very progressive educational system where they're trying to standardize the children, but you can't. I go through inner city and affluent. I'm a person that deals with all kinds of people. I really enjoy people. I'm a real people person. And I'll meet a mom, getting my nails done, and I'll say, did you hear about this? And they'll say, what? Each of my children, they learn differently. And this Common Core state standard initiatives, because the word state is in there, it sounds like the states were involved. They weren't involved. And those educators, there were no educators involved. And
well, I mean,
the details.
Cathy, Cathy, I know you keep saying there's no educators involved, but I just listed you the two of the biggest teachers unions, and as well as it said the top K-12 educators and the not-for-profit that I mentioned as well. I don't necessarily know if that would be the best answer. I don't know if what you're saying isn't necessarily factual with the information provided. However, I do want to ask a question. So if no Common Core, what should we get for our children?
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love children. That's another thing. I'll stop dead in my tracks in a conversation if there's a child behind. I mean, no child should be left behind. Every child deserves the opportunity to be educated. And what should they get? They should get something where people who care about them and know them the most, people who actually see them and get to know who they are. They're not a widget, a cog in the wheel for workforce development, because that's what actually Common Core is. Let's give each child the opportunity to rise above and to be their own best personal them. And the only way to do that is to put them in an environment locally, bring back the state control, bring back the local school control, where the administrators, the principals, the teachers who care about the child, as well as the parents in the community work together with that child. They see that child, they see that child's potential, and they can work with that child. The person who knows the child the best, who's actually with the child, can help the child. Not all children are great test takers. They have different learning styles. When you go through teacher training, one of the key points they teach you is to differentiate your learning and your teaching, and you can't do that with Common Core. When I meet moms in my community, they say, oh, please get rid of this. There's no creativity, there's no time for the kids to play, and you learn and play. There's a lot of skills that you learn and play.
Cathy, I hate to cut you off, but we do have someone on the panel who has a question, so I just want to give a chance to give Jason on the mic, and just in case you guys just tuned in, we're talking to Cathy Sapeta, and she's talking to us about Common Core. If you have a question or concern, number is 212-650-6903. Jason?
Hi, Cathy. I just had some questions. I think that you made some wonderful points concerning the close and very personal relationship that local and immediate teachers, principals, administrators have with the children. And while no one is saying that we need to go back to the days of rote memorization, I'm someone that's absolutely against that sort of learning. I don't even define it as learning. What are we going to do with the fact that conceptually and critically American children, for the most part, are behind the rest of the world? What can we establish, or what sort of alternative do we have outside of, let's say, the default answer, which normally would be, okay, the charter school system? But in my mind, that does not address the dearth of true learning that's going on as far as the public educational system. What do we do in order to actually, and let's use the word, standardize the fundamentals of arithmetic, of language comprehension, of reading, that is absolutely necessary in order to be competitive globally? Because whether we like it or not, whether this tugs at our heartstrings or not, we are not competing at the same level as more developed countries in the rest of the world.
Well, actually, appreciate the question. If you look at the empirical evidence and the studies that have been done, you'll see that we're actually performing very well. You pose a very great question, and thank you so much for asking it. Many people are now complaining about the new reports that have come out about how the minority, Black and Hispanics, are actually performing worse now with Common Core. And the reason for that is because it discriminates these children. The tests are actually invalid and unreliable. Just last month, a woman from the Rochester area was telling me a story about her little angel in her kindergarten class. Mom had just passed away. She was shot just in the heat of the night, and this child was then expected to go to school. Very challenging for these children to be able to take these standard tests and to be under the pressure of tests when in that kind of environment. When you're in a local environment where the teachers and the administrators and the parents can work together, getting back to your other point of your question, we can have our own set of standards within the state of New York. And I do know that there was an expert who started that project, and that's something that we should go back to, having our own standards and have it in our own control so we can adapt them to our particular children.
Thank you so much for that, Cathy. So we do have to, wrap the segment up. So I just want to give you a chance to let our listeners know where they can find more information about you and your ideas for education for children in New York and America in particular.
Yes, thank you. I think it is very, very important that we have an opportunity for all of our children to have their needs met in education. Some are meant to be Pavarottis, some are meant to be really good engineers, some will be house moms, some will be teachers. There's all types of jobs. Some will need special skills, some will need the BOCES occupational educational skills. So we need different types of educational forums for these children. You can find more information about the different programs that are available to help educate children from some of our nationwide experts. If you look at our website, which is www.nyunited4kids.com, you will find leading national experts who have some videos, some white papers. We also have Dr. Peg Luxick available. She's coming into town for Dutchess and Putnam County. If you would like her to come to community. I know Barbara from Harlem. Shout out to Barbara. I don't know if you know her, but she's an advocate for the young kids. We're trying to do a forum in Harlem, so we'd be happy to come in and give a presentation. It's all fact-based, and we have all of our research material. We've done this before. It's been out there before. We care about our kids, and we urge you to join us to get to know what the facts are about what Common Core is so you can help us help the kids.
Thank you so much for that, Cathy. So, guys, we do have to go on a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have a quick little wrap-up discussion on the Common Core topic. So stick with us. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard on 90.3 FM, WHCR, the voice of Harlem.
Now tuned into the greatest. Turn the music up in the headphones. Tim, you can go and brush your shoulder off. I got you. If you feeling like a pimp, go and brush your shoulders off. Ladies and pimps too, go and brush your shoulders off. It's crazy, baby, don't forget that boy told you can't. Turn up your shoulders, I'm probably going to y'all. Probably be locked like a horse, trying to hustle some pages. That go with the Porsche, drilling no remorse. Feeling like my hand was forced. Middle finger to the Lord, gripping my balls. Telling ladies they love me. From the bleachers they screaming. All the ballers is bouncing. They like the way I be leaning. All the rappers be hating. Off the track that I'm making. But all the hustlers they love it. Just to see one of us making. From the bottom of the bottom to the top of the box.
London, Japan, Australia. I love that song. Sorry, guys. We are back on Let Your Voice Be Heard on 90.3 FM, WHCR, the voice of Harlem. And we are running a little bit over time on Common Core because I know the panel still has a lot to say. I'm going to throw it to Carlos first.
Stanley, what a travesty. What
Don't hold back, Carlos.
What an absolute travesty. No, I'm actually really angry. When you have somebody running for national office, someone running for actually state office, to not have an actual coordinated. I can understand that, having talking points. Jason had a good point when we were right behind the closed doors when we were talking about running for office. Sometimes you don't want to, anger your parents.
Who are you talking about for listeners?
Zephyr Teachout.
So Carlos responded to a call we got earlier from Zephyr Teachout.
Every answer we got back was a talking point after talking point after talking point. That's fine. You're running for office. That's understandable. But I asked a very clear question. What is the alternative? How are you going to fund it? Well, we're going to fund, Wall Street, and we're going to tax Wall Street and have a progressive tax code. It's the same bull copy that we got from Bill de Blasio, the same bull copy we got even from Governor Cuomo. Status Cuomo.
Right.
For God's sakes, if you're running for office, you need to have an agenda, and your agenda should be a big core of your agenda should be the area that is affecting most students. And right now, it is one of the most segregated school systems in America.
And also, fun fact:
you are basically Alabama. We're basically Montgomery at this point because we not only have racial disparities, we no longer have segregation based on race. We have economic segregation. If you're poor and you're black, you're going to go to a crappy school
and get the failing teachers. I want to cut in for a second. So we know we have 70,000 teachers in New York City. 3% of them fail the evaluations. So that's about 2,100 teachers. Let's say about 500 of those teachers are tenured. So the firing process cannot happen right away. So there's no more rubber rooms. They get sent back to schools. You know where they get sent to? East New York, Brooklyn,
right,
Brownsville,
right,
West Harlem, East Harlem, South Bronx. So PS 194, I don't have the stat for it, but more than likely they have at least 5 teachers who have consistently failed the evaluations. But you know what? There's parts of Bay Ridge and like Bensonhurst where like you have that same kind of economic problems, but the demographics are not black and Latino,
right?
So they don't see that problem. There's definitely a racial premise behind this.
I mean, look at the Beacon School and Bay Ridge.
Yeah,
they're doing well because they're accepting kids from all backgrounds.
Yep.
And the model works because they are independent. I think that is something that I would like to hear somebody running for national office saying. We have a mandate based on the federal government to implement basic standards for our students. What do? We're not going to go with the charter schools. We're not going to go. We're going to take the funding. We're going to do something radically different.
Yeah,
that's fine. But let me just start out with Cathy, though. I'm so sorry because it's just 2 seconds. Another person just talking point after talking point after talking point. What solution? Oh, the children. Oh, the children. I mean, I'm so sorry. I'm just.
Well, what was your issue with her solution?
There's nothing wrong with having national standards. You need to have national standards to be able to have a national narrative and be competitive in a global economy. You don't do it based on, well, the model in Florida is drastically different from the model in Colorado, and if they're letting students just graduate because we like their faces in Florida, it should apply the same thing in Colorado, where we're allowing them to kind of like graduate because they were playing well in football. That whole independent, state-controlled system failed. Yeah. Flat out, it failed. It failed. It was a nice notion. It failed on its foot. We need to have some form of national standard. We need to have some form in which we can say the United States united can go in competition with Finland, with going to competition with Sweden, with China, etc. But you're not going to do it based on what policy. What policy? Where's the policy in this?
Yeah.
Empirical evidence is not going to create policy. That's it. I'm done.
Jason, do you have any last words on this?
What can I say? But the conversations that we've had have been rather dismal. Because at the end of the day, I'm hearing advocacy for the teachers. I'm hearing advocacy for the parents, but I'm not really hearing anything that advocates or lobbies for the effects that it's going to have on the children, and including the parents. Because many of these disagreements I'm hearing seem to be more about, I don't feel good about what's happening, that you don't feel good, the parent, but what about the actual effect that it's having on your child? And at the end of the day, regardless of all this, you still need national standards. I am one person that is wholly and completely behind that idea, but how are we going to go about implementing those standards? That's another discussion that I haven't heard well articulated by anyone here today, including myself, because I don't have that answer. But that still does not erase the fact that we have that problem to face on a nationwide basis.
Yeah. Celine, do you have any quick closing statements?
Yeah, I mean, after Carlos dropped the mic, I didn't have too much to say afterwards. I mean, I just think that, again, it's just sad that we don't have, I guess, a formal structure or format that could replace something that so many people are saying is hurting students.
We don't have an alternative format.
Right.
That's what's so tragic. The fact that we don't come together as a society to create alternative formats to already templates.
Right.
All we're getting are the same templates, just repackaged in the same with a different wrapping package. So having an alternative apparently is very hard for the Democrats, and apparently it's very hard for the advocates and the reformers.
I'm going to just close this out really quickly, guys, so you know. There are two things that I know for sure. We do need some level of standardized testing because you need to know where your child is. You need to know, because if you don't know where they are, how can you know where to take them or what they need to, like, what they need assistance in? That's one. And two, you need national standards, because when you bring it back to local, which has already failed, you'll have situations like in Texas where they're buying textbooks where it's telling children that the earth is 6,000 years old and that humans live with dinosaurs. That's the kind of risk you put when you have when you leave power up to certain states, and it's just based on the ideology of just one particular group, and we never know what it's going to be. If we really are really engaged and interested in, like, the goal of making sure every child has a quality education, we need to stop with the talking points. We need to stop with the I feel, I hope, they're angels, and let's really sit down and have a conversation about what's going to work. Common Core, I think, is a good idea, but Jason is right. The implementation, that's where the question marks still remain for all of us. So let's stop talking about talking points. Let's stop worrying about teachers. Let's stop worrying about parents, and let's start figuring out what's going to work for the children, because the children are the one who are going to be leading the future, who are going to be leaders of the free world. And I, for one, do not want to be old and have a president who can do the cat daddy but can't add. So let's get this together, guys. We'll be right back after this quick break. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard. The news roundup is next.
into the waste, we fall into the river. Cover your eyes so you don't know the secret. I've been trying to hide. We held our breath to see our names return. Like a racist, that was the year I knew about it was over. Since we found out that anything could happen, 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 anything could happen.
Hi, this is Sister Virginia Cotton, and I'll take you to that place every Tuesday morning from 6 to 10 in the a.m. on the Gospel Legends program. We'll lift the Savior and take a trip down memory lane. How far back will I go? Tune in on Tuesday morning, WHCR 90.3 FM from 6 to 10 in the a.m. And don't forget the website. That's the 3Ws.WHCR.org. I'm so excited.
You will have nothing if you don't have change or a plan. We didn't hear too many plans in the previous segment. So, guys, this is Let Your Voice Be Heard on 90.3 FM, WHCR, the voice of Harlem, and we are at the News Roundup. We're going to talk about news, all the news, or some of the news. Selena?
Okay, thank you for that, Stanley, and that crazy voice. Right, so I kind of wanted to start things off. Well, before I do that, if you guys want to comment or you have a news story that's really interesting, call us up at 212-650-6903 or tweet us at BeHeard_radio. So, I mean, there's a lot of big news and there's a lot of crazy news. I'll go with the second American journalist who was beheaded by ISIS this week. He was also buried. His name was Stephen Sotloff. And he was covering of Syria in August 2013 when he was kidnapped, of course. And then ISIS sent out they released another propaganda video showing him being beheaded. And they also said that a British man will, I think that they threatened to take his life next, of course, if America does not stop dropping drones on Iraq and stop, the airstrikes. So, I mean, it was tragic in the least. Our condolences definitely go out to Stephen's family. But, I mean, when it comes to just the policy side, we know that President Obama continually has spoke about this, even this week, and all the different crises that are going on overseas. And ISIS, Iraq, and Syria happen to be one of the most prominent things that, we're paying attention to.
As of last check-in, the president still did not have a strategy. Am I correct? Yeah. And
I didn't hear one.
Hey, you know what? That's not a bad policy. I don't think that's
the policy of no policy.
Policy. I have to agree with Ron Paul.
Do though? I mean, let's think about it, because you can push ISIS out of Iraq, but they can go run Syria, and we're not going to help Syria because of Assad. So, like, what do you do?
What do you realistically do in this situation? If you're not going to commit forces,
nuke them.
No. It's not
that's a joke.
It's not that you nuke them, but no, and I absolutely positively would not concur with that. But you have to essentially put a moratorium on all travel and all interaction with that state, because whether you like it or not, it's a de facto state. They're running a country over there, and they are not friendly with Americans. And it's your journalists, your tourists, anyone in that vicinity. That's it. Because if they're not going to protect American citizens,
isn't addressing them as a state already a victory for ISIL?
I think it does constitute that, because they fundamentally are functioning in that way.
Because you don't understand, like, the war also, this battle also is a propaganda battle, and adding on to the propaganda is the
recognition of it. Exactly. Right. And I do understand that it may not lend them diplomatic legitimacy, but it does give them, the basic recognition among the nation or the community of nations. But that's what's happening, because if we're not going to topple that country over, or we're not going to ally with a proxy or have a proxy fight the war for us, that's it. It's a quote unquote, for lack of a better term, it's a terrorist state.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, something needs to be done. I would prefer if the president, like, let's say he does have a plan or he doesn't, he's experimenting. I don't think that we necessarily need to know everything that's going on behind the scenes anyway. So I don't know. I didn't feel that uncomfortable when he was just like, we don't have a strategy.
I just think it's a good model to have when you're realistically trying to actively
right.
form a strategy, you're not going to go out and say, "Well, we're going to send in 600 troops." Immediately after the infamous news conference, the Tansuit conference, which
the Tansuit right.
conference,
right.
Barack Obama approved somewhere around 300 servicemen to go back to Iraq.
Yeah.
So there is a behind the closed strategy, but we don't have a Bush presidency that will say we're going to chase him to the gates of hell. That we have Joe Biden.
That was Vice President Biden for that. Yeah, let's see how that goes, Joe.
Really quickly, guys, we do have a call on the line. So, Gary, let your voice be heard.
Oh yes, good afternoon, gang.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Hey, yeah, well, I'm coming along, but you know what? How can you have a strategy against raindrops? Condensation is like, it's what evaporated.
Gary, do me a favor, turn your radio down. We're having trouble hearing you.
Thank you. Is it better?
Yeah.
All the way down or off?
Turn it down.
I mean, that's that.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay, what evaporates, I mean, it's inevitable to come back down, in some shape, form, or fashion. So him not having a strategy only makes sense because you would not know where these blows is going to come from, due to the fact that disgruntledness is disgruntledness. I mean, they can say they're Islamic one day. They can say that this is because what's happening, the same principle was happening over here in the United States. They're not telling us that down in Texas, about 20 police officers have been shot and killed in the line of duty between last year and this year. And it's like this is disgruntled people, that's disgruntled against maybe law enforcement, so-called authorities. Something's going on that's not being told to the public.
Gary, I think law enforcement's coming after you right now. I hear the sirens in the back.
Look, I'm used to it, man. I'm dodging the raindrops.
You gotta dip low real quick.
But I mean, I can understand your sound like you're on the ball because we all want, something done about something. But see, what happens with us, we start fighting against each other because this one's a Muslim, that one's an Islamic, that's one a Jehovah's Witness, that one's a Jewish background. We all have a lot of these variations in our own families, and it splits us up, and we got to be careful of that because the United States is back in one group one day, next group the next year, the next group, and then this is crazy. So how do you form a strategy against condensation?
I mean, that's a good question, Gary. But Gary, thank you so much for calling in.
Just spoil the fun.
No, you definitely didn't. You definitely did. Now, I was worried about the cops. I hit them coming for you now. But guys, that was Gary. He asked a good question. How do you stop condensation? Because I mean, I guess what he's saying, you knock them down, they just come raining right back on you the next day. Carlos,
I'll tell you something. There's a fine line between not having a strategy with condensation and having a kicking the can down the road on very pressing issues that kind of affect the national standard. And I think my contribution to the news roundup is unfortunately something that I don't approve with the president, and that is delaying the immigration action. I think waiting past November 4th with the kind of Congress we're probably going to end up having is not going to be necessarily the most constructive thing in the world. One thing's dealing with ISIL. Don't get me wrong. ISIL, you need to take your time with that. With immigration, though, when you have people suffering, when you have people afraid of their constant status, when you have people basically going down to the border and trying to shoot up people who they think are immigrants, then you have an issue.
But the thing is with the president, especially with the Democrats, they have been advocating and pushing for this.
With the Democrats.
No, they've been pushing for it for years and then, especially this year and especially in 2013. And every time Republican, like John Boehner said, we will not bring the issue of immigration to even a vote. Why? Because it would pass right now. So it's like the president has all of these obstacles. Yes, we did want him to use his executive authority to make a move, but I mean, there's already
politics, though.
There's already hearsay and commentary coming from the right that they would impeach the president if he decided to do. I mean, what do we really want him to do when he has all of these walls and obstacles?
He's gonna pass his executive action on immigration reform. He is absolutely going to do it. He's not doing it now because there are still Democrats in hotbed and like very close elections where if he passed it, if he put some executive action, it could cost him to lose. That is the only reason he's waiting, because the midterm elections are not as clear cut as we, especially I, have always thought it to be, and Democrats have a very decent chance of holding the Senate. Now, we know Republicans, even to win the House, the Congress, and the Senate, they're not going to have a supermajority, so he can veto any bill they throw his way. But if his thinking right now is, if we can possibly keep the Senate, I'm going to hold off on this bullet until after elections. After elections, I'm sure he's going to do something.
Well,
I think it would have just emboldened the base, at least a progressive base in necessary areas. Upstate New York is still going swing. This could have really, brought out people to vote for their candidates.
This is the same base that never comes out during midterm elections. This is the same base. The base. Oh, they always talk about ways to embolden the Democratic base. They don't turn out. You know who turns out? Racist old folks and ignorant people who hate gays. They always turn out.
Well, for midterms, because midterms don't have for most people don't have the historicity of a presidential election. So what you do tend to see are older sort of age cohorts and racial cohorts that turn out. But what's lost on the younger generations, including ourselves, is the importance of participating in those midterm elections.
That's right.
Because those help to determine the leadership of the Congress, which, in this case, I'll put my money that it's probably going to be a Republican, fully Republican Congress.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have to see. And really quickly, I just wanted to mention, last week we spoke about the 9-year-old girl who accidentally shot a gun range instructor when they put an Uzi in her hand. This week, a chemistry teacher she's a professor in college in Idaho State University. He was in the middle of teaching his chemistry class, and he accidentally shot himself in the foot when his concealed weapon went off. And I just wanted to say that the reason why he can have this gun and conceal it on campus now is due to a law that went into effect July 1st. So because he wasn't in like a nuclear lab and he was only in a chemistry lab, he was allowed to have that, and obviously it discharged. I mean, we kind of sniggered about it, but there was 19 students in that classroom, and I just don't think that the solution to gun violence is giving people more access to have guns in anywhere around
what
students.
State was this in?
Idaho.
Okay, so he had a concealed weapon license. He was licensed.
An enhanced concealed weapon license.
Okay, so he was enhanced. So he had registered license to have the firearm.
Yeah.
So he just messed up.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want somebody messing up in classrooms where my child is.
I mean, I'm kind of with Jason on this one. I think most people who feel the need to walk around with a concealed weapon are stupid, unless like you're fighting in the apocalypse and you might need it. But I mean, that's just my opinion of it. Like, listen, he wants to shoot. People gonna shoot themselves in the feet, whatever. Like, that's their problem. Just don't shoot me or people around.
Hey, I mean,
stay in your places like Idaho and Texas and wherever else you idiots live.
Don't come to New York City.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It wasn't like another Plaxico Burris situation or something, right?
Hey, it could be.
Mexico. So, all right, guys, we do have to go on a break. And when we get back, we'll be talking about nude photos. And this time, it's not on me.
Oh, thank God.
Hater.
My anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, hun.
Boy, toy named Troy used to live in Detroit. Big money, he was getting some coins. Was the shootouts with the law, but he lived in a palace. Bought me Alexander McQueen, he was keeping me stylish. Now that's real.
Frequency clear. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening. Now, let's get it on.
You are now listening to the House in Harlem Radio Show. House in Harlem Radio Show with DJ Vince the Prince, Stunna DJ, and I am TinaDixon.com on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, the voice of Harlem, the voice of Harlem, the voice.
Is there some there? Yeah. Is that some rock there? Yeah. Well, let's go. I tell her meet me in the
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Get some narrow. If I score her and her girlfriend, I'm calling the air one. If I murder that from the back.
And we are back. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR 90.3 FM.
The voice of Harlem.
Thank you for that, Stanley, and that deep Batman voice. Okay, so we're back on the show, and this hour we will be speaking about the celebrity photo leaks that have been all over news media. I'm pretty sure a lot of people heard of it, and I'm pretty sure you saw some naked celebrities this week.
All right, listen, it's not my fault. My friend added me with the Twitter handle, the fapping. I'm like, what is this? And I clicked on it, and it just had all of them there, and I felt really bad afterwards.
You just felt really bad while you scrolled through every single picture.
Yeah, I just scrolled through
and looked at it.
No, but I felt bad afterwards. I realized, like, A, that was a creep move, and B, like, that's really bad. And I'm like, what if like they had like done that to me? They wouldn't, because who wants to see me naked?
The thing is, it's non-consensual. It's one thing when your friend, girlfriend, or loved one sends you a naked photo. It's another thing when you're exposing someone after you hacked into their iCloud. So let me just give some background information to the story. So a massive leak of 101 nude photos of female celebrities occurred on the internet during Labor Day weekend. And again, a hacker uploaded these dozens of nude photos of female celebrities, including A-listers like Jennifer Lawrence and Kate Upton, to a message board website called 4chan. It didn't take long before the pictures went viral, sparking a lot of debate over celebrity privacy, cyberbullying, and of course, slut shaming. Other stars who were affected by the leak included pop singer Ariana Grande and Hilary Duff, but they both said that, these photos are fake. You had some stars who were like, yeah, this is definitely me, like Jennifer Lawrence, and Jill Scott claimed that one of the photos was her, but then she said the other one was fake. So one of the biggest things.
Quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Wasn't there also that Olympic girl, the girl from the Olympics?
Yes,
what was
it was
her name?
I will have to.
I'm gonna have to Google this on my phone.
Right, yeah, but she was an Olympic star.
Make sure you Google web and not images.
Actually, if you Google images, chances are you're going to be promoting child pornography.
Yeah, that's why
she is underage.
This scandal definitely skirted the lines of law, decency, and morality in so many different lanes. Some of the women weren't.
It didn't skirt. It was just flat out wrong.
Right.
It was. It definitely was. But not everyone saw it as wrong. And a lot of the online reaction we got was, well, you know what? Why are these celebrity women who's supposed to be role models taking pictures and saving them on their
I gotta jump in there. I know Stan, you were about to say something, but first of all, this hacker went into their private accounts,
right?
And then these are actresses and models or what have you. They're not anyone's moral role model. I don't think any of them necessarily claim to be that.
Right.
So to put the onus on them that this is some shameful practice, that they're, whatever one's individual morality is when it comes to nudity, that's your own business. But I can't, in my mind, put the blame on these women for being, victimized.
Yeah.
And that's what they were. They were victimized. They were targeted.
What you're doing in your private life is really up to you. I think it's great that some of these stars have active sex lives and they're actively trying to promote their own body image on their own private accounts, but violating someone's security, going through their pictures just imagine how creepy it is, just having some random person go through your own private accounts. It is really literally the time we're living in. There is no sense of privacy anymore, to the extent that has been largely accepted before the internet age. But going back to the point, it's creepy, it's gross. I unfortunately I was also tagged in to see the pictures.
Oh, you were tagged. Okay.
I don't actively.
Sir, you didn't Google it, search it, and then share it.
It's barking on the wrong tree, but I don't think necessarily it is appropriate to have this kind of this kind of mass information break,
Right. Stanley, I know you want to chime in.
Yeah, just really quickly, I want to quote my friend Jen, who said on Facebook, the people who are criticizing these women for their nude photos are the kind of dudes that have sex with their boxes and socks on.
That's wow. That goes in the quotes.
And with that, so I'm gonna, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest. We have Mary Ann Franks on the line with us. She is an associate professor of law at the University of Miami School of Law, and she is the vice president of the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative, which is a nonprofit which is dedicated to challenging online harassment and abuse. She's also been very advocately tweeting about the Celebgate, which it has been called, hashtag, and Celeb Leaks, hashtag. And she came on the show before last year. Welcome back, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So we started the conversation off just about the online reaction. I actually had one of the tweets that I got. One man said, "As a man, I'm not complaining." Of course, he's saying about the celeb leaks. But seriously, why the F are celebrities taking these nudes anywhere? Anyway, have to take some responsibility too. So Mary, I just want you to chime in there. I want to start off with these online reaction. Why are so many people so quick to blame the victims in this case?
The short answer is that many people really hate women and they really hate sex. It may sound strange to say that because these are people who are delighted to look at these pictures, but if you think about what they're really saying, they're looking at these pictures, they're consuming them. This particular person you just quoted is pretty open about that fact, and then immediately turns around and says, shame on these women for doing this. And that makes that kind of contradictory impulse that many people have about sex and about women. I think it's really disturbing to see this massive celebration or trivialization of what's happened to these women. It tells us something very unnerving about the way people consider women's bodies to be public property, and that we're allowed to judge them on every possible term, but also to consume them in every possible way. And it's so different from anything else we could imagine. When we think about the Target breach that happened a few months ago, where you had 40 million or so users whose information was compromised, nobody celebrated that. No one said that's what you get for shopping at Target. No one said I'm going to go and look at the sites that have this information and take advantage of it. And so we're treating women's bodies as though they were less important, less sacred, less deserving of protection than even financial information.
Just a quick question. Yeah, and, forgive my generalization, but there's a lot of conversation about the, this idea that internet culture promotes sexism and it promotes misogyny. And do you find that there's any kind of merit in that kind of observation?
I think it's an understatement, because I think what we really see at moments like these is the kind of unashamed embrace of misogyny. It really is. I mean, we're talking about an incredible privacy violation. We're talking about a theft, and we're not only not condemning it, we're actually all, not all, but many people are celebrating it, are really finding that this is a wonderful thing. And if you think about the message that communicates, it really is saying women don't have the right to own their own bodies. If they want to keep something private, they should never, ever get naked. I mean, it's amazing to think that when we were talking last time on the show about women who give photos like this to a partner, and so many people were saying, well, you're really stupid to give it to a partner. I feel bad for you if it got stolen from you or maybe hacked. And now you have the situation where it is about women's photos being stolen and hacked, and people are saying, well, maybe you shouldn't have ever gotten naked. There really is no end to this logic of saying this is what women can't do. And the fact that we're so free as a culture to say, well, she should not do this and not do this and not do this, as opposed to looking at the people who've actually done wrong here. And that includes the people who hack these photos, but also everybody who is looking at them.
You know what? Interesting point, Mary. That leads me to my next question. Should people who viewed and who are actively sharing the pictures be punished in any type of way? And I'm talking about everyday average people, and I'm also talking about websites like TMZ, which did the same thing. So, these are two different conversations, but I want you to address both.
Don't forget, CNN also put up a link.
And CNN put up a link?
Put up a link.
Wow. So,
right. I think there's a couple of different dimensions here. I mean, on the one hand, there's media versus everybody else, but there's also a question of moral versus legal responsibility. So let's talk about the moral first, because the legal gets trickier. But as a moral matter, yes, I think if you know that these pictures are non-consensual, and as opposed to a situation where someone just sends you something and you didn't know what it was and you click on it, which I don't think anybody could hold you accountable for, but if you knew, you went looking for, or you promoted, or you forwarded, or you shared these images knowing that they were non-consensually obtained, I think you are absolutely morally responsible, and you are complicit in what is essentially crowdsourced voyeurism, and you are making it, you are actually part of the problem. If these hackers had simply hacked all these images and kept them somewhere, then that would be one thing. The problem here is that people keep looking at them, and they keep sharing them, and they keep passing them around as if they weren't stolen information, as if they weren't a grotesque violation of privacy.
Well, here's the thing, and I've heard this argument a lot. As humans, we have a natural curiosity to want to see and want to look. Like, it's like if somebody says, oh, I have something really cool, but don't look at it, you're going to be like, bro, what is it? So I think a lot of people saying, out of my natural curiosity, I did look. And then, or it was shared on my wall, and then I looked at one more, and I was like, this is wrong. And some people are even saying, like, I've heard men saying, you know what? I don't want to be shamed because I am a heterosexual man, and I do love to see Kate Upton, and the pictures were there, and I looked at the picture, and I don't want to be shamed. What do you say to those type of arguments? Stanley, did you want to jump in?
Who's sharing nudes on people's Facebook walls? Like, isn't that something you inbox? I understand where that part of the argument comes from. Like, I'm a man, like, I don't mind seeing a naked woman, but I think we're at an age where we have to be responsible. It's like, there's something very wrong with this. This is the equivalent of, like, peeking under a girl's dress or looking into a window, like, in someone's house. Right. Like, you didn't get permission to see this. This person's not okay with this. This person did not even know about this. And, like, the person who, like, made it their mission to go and search for these photos, like, what did you want? Like, what's wrong with you?
Mary, did you want to chime in there?
So I think that's exactly right. I mean, this idea that there's something natural about wanting to look, that's such a strangely artificial and defensive way to talk about this. No, you're not naturally designed to look at these things. It's not like something really cool that somebody has. It's, here's a violation of someone. Do you want to participate in it? And if you say yes, well, I think you have to own that you are signing on to doing something terrible to a person. And every time you look at this, knowing that it was non-consensual, yes, you repeat the very action. If somebody were showing you, hey, I've got this video of a girl that I raped, come and look at it, and the girl in question is very pretty, does it make it okay for you to look? No, of course it doesn't, because it has nothing to do with just wanting to look at a woman. You want to look at a woman without her permission, and that is something that's not natural, and it's not something that's morally acceptable.
And that's why we have laws against voyeurism, or to an extent, against stalking and spying on individuals. Do you think that we should act on a way in which we find legal means to stopgate this kind of attitude on the internet?
Mary?
I think that's right. I think that if you use the line of, well, it's just natural for me to do X, I mean, you can justify anything with that. You can say, well, it's natural for me to get mad at this guy for insulting me, so it's natural for me to beat him to a pulp, or it's natural for me to want that person's money, so I'm just going to steal it. We have laws and standards in this country and every civilized society that go beyond just what you might feel like doing at any given moment. That's not enough. I mean, we require more of each other as basic human beings. You can't just do whatever you want to do, and you certainly can't escape the moral censure that all of us ought to be directing towards these people who are saying, oh, yes, it's perfectly fine for me to look. It's really not fine, and there's a reason why people are being defensive about it.
But what would be your response, for example, if somebody who says that laws like that will encroach their ability to also not creep, but to express their freedom of speech, because there will always be the argument that they did not receive that information from the source. And sure, they are going into crowdfunding, but at the same time, the whole point of the internet is to have mass communication, mass information, and sharing some of these pictures, while wrong, do implement a complacency to the source, to the virality to the problem. But they can always argue there's freedom of speech in this country, and I do have the right to share whatever I'm saying in the internet.
Well, those two things I think are different. Okay. Saying that there's freedom of speech and saying that I have the freedom to share whatever I want. And we know this from the fact that as soon as people heard that Michaela Maroney's pictures were taken when she was underage, people were like, oh, shit, I'm not going to share that. And that's because that's against the law, and it actually makes you complicit in child pornography, and people do understand that that's a problem. Now, if we use this idea that freedom of speech means I can do whatever I want, then I ought to be able to share child pornography, too. And for that matter, I ought to be able to forward it. I ought to be able to promote it. I ought to be able to do all of these things.
Thank you for
clarifying that. And that goes for many things. I mean, it means that I could also use my speech to hire somebody to kill my wife. I mean, that would be speech too, but it's actually not protected by the First Amendment. So we have to think about all the ways that, history and tradition have said, yes, there's this thing called freedom of speech, but no, it has never meant the freedom to do whatever you want or share whatever you want.
Hi, this is Jason. I'm glad that you did get into the standards of obscenity, because that is definitely something I think that is relevant to the conversation here, and more so, Besides this unique episode, I perhaps unique is the wrong word. I find this to be a perpetuation of the issue of objectification of women in this culture. This uniquely, or perhaps particularly American issue with sexual mores and sexual determination when it comes to women. And how this, even at this point with the internet in the 21st century, we still find ourselves casting shame and blame on these women for doing something that, in my mind, is something that was done privately, done in the privacy of their own homes, and yet somehow we're castigating them and blaming them for a sheer and pure violation of their privacy. I mean, what do you think as far as, the changing of the cultural paradigm could be done or should be done in order to address this issue?
I think first and foremost we have to expose this kind of hypocrisy for what it is. We cannot, on the one hand, as a culture, say, oh, we want women to be sexual, we want to appreciate women's beauty and all this, and at the same time shame them for for ever having any kind of record of the fact that they in fact do have a body and it is sometimes naked. So we just can't do that. That's the double standard that we can't keep trying to maintain. But we also have to understand that you can't promote sexuality or a healthy body image or any of those things without the notion of consent. Consent is key to everything. There's no such thing as liberating a woman from her desire for her own privacy. What it really means to respect a woman's body or anybody's body is that they get to have the say over who gets to see them and who gets to treat them in certain ways. And so for people to really embrace this phenomenon that just happened, you think about how there are so many naked women on the internet. You don't have to try very hard at all to get plenty of women who are sensibly consenting to being seen that way. So why is there even a drive to hack into these women's personal accounts? It's because you don't want to just see naked bodies. You want humiliation. You want her to not know and have no control over the fact that you're seeing her naked. And some of these women have even themselves appeared naked before. But that's not good enough. There's something about, we need to interrogate, why do people want to see women when they don't want to be seen? That's really what we have to talk about.
Thank you so much for that, Mary. We do have to go on a quick break, but we're going to come more talking about the Celebgate, the nude photo scandal, right here on Let Your Voice Be Heard.
Jello beats, holla at me.
And Chewy and some hot.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
And we keep them to my block. And Monte keep it on him, hit him drop. And we be wildin', he some hot. Tones known to get busy with them. Try to run down and you could catch. Running through these checks till I pass out. And shorty give me neck till I pass out. I swear to God, all I do is cash out. And if you ain't up, get up on my trap house. I've been selling since like the 5th grade. Really never made no difference with the shit made. That told me flip them packs and how to maintain. Get that money back and spend it on the same thing. Shorty like the way that I ball out. I be getting money till I fall out. You talking cash, dog, I goes all out. Shorty love the way that I floss out. Free greasy them, let all of my dogs out. Mama said no cats inside my dog. That's what got my daddy locked up in the dog pound. Free fan on them, let all of my dogs out. We gon' pull up in that like we cops on them. With them 16s, we gon'
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
She gon' call me up and I'ma stick the eyes on them.
Do the shmoney dance. Do the shmoney dance. I've been reading books since the 1st grade. Go to school every day, getting 9 days.
Oh, right. That is the better version. Overwrite was really being said in that song.
I can't do the shmoney dance because I ain't got no shmoney.
Oh,
So
wow.
when's your album dropping?
Never.
Yeah.
Never Denver.
We're back on Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR 90.3 FM. And when we aren't doing the shmoney dance, we're actually talking about real issues.
Can I just say that I only play the shmoney dance for Selena?
Thank you.
I want to make her Sunday. I do not in any way support that horrible piece of trash you just heard on the radio.
But I don't know. I like to dance to it. And, well, Jason was talking about Little Schmurder.
Yeah. I came across a video on YouTube. Once again, don't concur with it, don't co-sign it. But it's a 6 and 7-year-old boy who knew the lyrics T for T, every word, performed the whole thing. Yeah,
Common Core math, right?
He probably doesn't apply with the Common Core. Probably doesn't comply.
But he knew that.
But he knew the Smurder dance.
Another conversation for another day.
Absolutely.
We're definitely gonna have to address this. But right now we have on the line with us Mary Ann Franks. She is an associate professor of law, and she's also the vice president of the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative, which is a non-for-profit dedicated to challenging online harassment and abuse. So, Mary, I kind of wanted to take it here, like switch gears just a little bit, because we saw so much outrage, rightfully so, when Jennifer Lawrence her nudes were leaked, and a number of other A-list celebrities, and maybe even some B-list. But it seems like, and I definitely want to get your take on this, when Jill Scott's pictures were finally leaked, and I saw Jill Scott trending on Twitter for a while.
Can I cut you off? I'm sorry.
Hold on. Fine. Okay, go ahead, silly.
First of all, thank you for bringing this up, because they were calling her Jill Scott on Twitter.
Well, let's explain. So when Jill Scott's pictures were leaked, you didn't see the same amount of defense, and I heard a lot of criticism coming towards mainstream feminists and feminism, because it seemed like a lot of feminists, they jumped on a bandwagon and they rightfully defended Jennifer Lawrence, and we were saying all the things that needed to be said about why this behavior and why sharing and viewing non-consensual pictures of women is wrong. But then when Jill Scott came on, because she is a thick African American woman who, she doesn't have the same body type as Jennifer Lawrence. We know she lost some weight, but she's still very curvy. And I'm not talking about the fake curves that a lot of other black women have who are in pop media right now. But she has some real curves. So, and what you saw was a lot of ridicule being, her being attacked for being, this type of woman. Like Stanley said, they were calling her Jill Thought. I saw a lot of people saying, just making fun of her breast shape and size. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, there was actually a trending topic where they were comparing her nipples to different objects.
Wow. So she had a different amount of ridicule.
And there was no defense. Like, it was like, Jennifer Lawrence is beautiful. Respect her. Nothing for Jill Scott. And she came out there and she owned it like, yeah, I look good. I appreciate my body. I love my body.
Right.
I give respect for that.
And one of the pictures she said was her. Another picture she said, that's not my body. But so Mary, what did you say? What did you say? I know you're heavy on Twitter yourself. Like, what was going on when you see? I know you had to see Jill Scott trending on Twitter. What did you feel about that?
Yes, and I think that I found it a little strange that there was a sudden criticism aimed at mainstream feminists, whatever that term actually means, because as far as I could tell, all the really great work that was being done and the great articles that were being written about the celebrity hacking scandal were focused on the fact that no woman, no person deserves to be treated like this, and the fact that they're celebrities doesn't change that. I didn't see anyone saying, well, this is only because Jennifer Lawrence is so pretty, or because she's white, or because it had nothing. It was really standing up for all women, all the women that were hacked, any of the women who could be hacked. And so the fact that, these same writers maybe didn't write a whole piece just about Jill Scott when that broke a little bit afterwards, I don't take anything from that other than I think a lot of feminists had said what they needed to say, which is, as the general rule, this applies to everyone. It's not because Jennifer Lawrence is Jennifer Lawrence. And from my own perspective, having worked on non-consensual pornography for a couple of years now, our position has always been for everyone. No one deserves to have their right to privacy taken away from them, and we shouldn't be focusing on this because it's celebrities or because they're white or because they're pretty or because of any of these reasons. Every person deserves the right to control who sees their bodies, and so that applies to Jill Scott as well. So I find it strange that the criticism is being aimed at feminists. I find that weird, especially considering what you just mentioned, the absolutely disgusting response or treatment that Jill Scott is getting. It's in many ways much worse than what a lot of these other celebrities are getting because of how insulting the commentary has been. There's been a kind of bizarre, Jennifer Lawrence is really hot kind of, that's sick too, because of course they shouldn't be looking at these pictures, but at least they're not outright insulting her and adding insult to injury. Whereas with Jill Scott, it's become open season on this woman's body, and it's been racist, and it's been sexist, and it's been horrific. And that is not coming from feminists. That's the same people who are looking at everybody else's leaked hack nudes too. So that, I think, is where we need to focus our attention, that this kind of appropriation of these women's bodies has different dimensions, and it gets even worse when they're invited to throw their racism into it as well as their sexism.
Definitely. So you think that the criticism, and I saw some first-handedly, directed at mainstream white feminists was unwarranted? Like, and you're saying that when feminists were speaking out, people like yourself, advocates, you're speaking from a general and a generic fundamental basis. And there was no disparity, because I was reading other feminists, especially feminists of color, who were saying there's a difference. But that's why I wanted to get your take, because I was on Twitter that day.
It almost calls back to Sojourner Truth. Am I not a woman?
Right.
I mean, to what extent do we have to really throw down the line in which not all women are not treated equally among every single layer of society, of the fabric of society, despite racial bias, despite social classes, despite body image?
Right. I think do we have a call on the line, Stanley? Okay, so we were going to throw it to Miss Deborah, who's on the line, who would like to let her voice be heard. Good afternoon, Miss Deborah.
Hi, how are you? I was just about to say something, but I heard Carlos, did you say not all women are created equally?
No.
About that.
Did somebody say that?
Carlos, can you clarify? I think you said something about not all women are created equally.
Oh, yes, Sojourner Truth, Am I Not a Woman?
You were referring to Sojourner Truth's speech, where she said that.
I was about to say, this is nothing new. This is nothing new. I've seen this happen over and over again. And organizations like NOW and others, you don't open your mouth. But you know what I say? When people need a vote for whatever it is they want, I know where to go. And Jill Scott doesn't have to explain her beauty to anybody, because I see so many young white women in Hollywood. They're taking pills. They're butchering their bodies. So, whether or not you think she's beautiful, that's fine. Because people wouldn't make so much money in these industries if people weren't so insecure and didn't have the need to change their look.
Ms. Deborah, thank you for that comment. I just do want to clarify, insecurity is not a particularly white thing. Insecurity can happen to anyone. Anyone and everyone who feels insecure and feels the need to do certain things to their body can do it, and it's not just relegated to one group. While I did feel that there wasn't enough support coming for Jill Scott after those pictures came out, I don't traffic in the feminist circle, so maybe I just wasn't there. I wasn't there to see that. So and that's why I think it was so important for Marianne to give that answer, and I really appreciated her answer.
Definitely.
So I don't think we want to ever make this a division thing, because the equality of women is something that should be at the forefront. Not about the equality of women, or black women need equality before white women. We all need equality. Right.
Equality is what is needed. Thank you for that. So Mary, eventually we are going to have to try to bring the segment to a close, but I wanted to ask what needs to be done now, what legislation needs to be pushed. Of course, we know that you are heavy and have been pushing on the revenge porn, just advocating against revenge porn, and we had you on the show last year. So when it comes to, the celebrity nude photos, yes, it happened to 101 celebrities, but it's happening to regular women all the time, every single day. And I know that, there's legislation being pushed. Do we need a separate piece of legislation just to protect from this type of scandal from happening again?
Or really legal reforms of any kind?
I definitely think we need legal reform. I mean, there's no silver bullet to this problem, because there are always going to be some people disobey the law regardless, but what's important here is to think about the ways that we could at least express as a society our condemnation of this type of abuse and make it possible for people to be punished for it, so that they don't so gleefully just celebrate some violations like this and become part of it. So what we advocate for, what we've been advocating for, is a law against the non-consensual disclosure of intimate images, and that would apply to celebrities, that would apply to private citizens. It would apply to anyone whose pictures were taken out of the context in which they were given and used and distributed in public. And those laws have passed in some states, but only in a handful of states. We really do think that the federal criminal law needs to be passed on this to protect sexual privacy, so that it would apply to everyone, and that it would make it very clear that this was the kind of behavior that is prohibited, so that everybody would be on notice that this would be illegal. Because we've seen, as I mentioned before, that when people are aware that something might be child pornography, they, suddenly they're not as quick to share things. If they knew it was definitely prohibited by law, they would be somewhat deterred. So we really do think that if we consider how people's private information is protected in so many other ways, if you look at, for instance, the laws on stolen property, if you knowingly receive stolen property, knowing that it's stolen, you are in trouble. That's a criminal offense. And yet when that property is something much more important in some ways and much more intimate and damaging than, a computer or a bike or whatever it is, but actually your images, we don't have any protections for that. And that needs to change. We need to treat people's privacy, their sexual privacy, their bodily privacy, at least as seriously as we treat financial privacy.
Thank you so much for that, Mary. We actually have time for one more caller. We have Bruce on the line. I wanted to get his question or comment in before we let you go. Bruce, let your voice be heard.
Yes, good afternoon. I just find it a little disingenuous that the lawyer, she wants to shackle the eyes of people's looks, and it doesn't seem as though, she's really, respecting the fact that these are women. These are women that they're not girls, they're women of age, and they're showing their body for one reason or another. I mean, why would anybody want to, be nude on the web globally, unless they want to be seen? I mean,
you know what, Bruce?
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you were listening to the whole segment, but you know what? That's a very real comment and thought that people have. Mary, can you address that really quickly? Because the thing is, people do think that, and I'm not sure why. But is there something you can say, in closing, briefly about, just to address people who have the perception that if you shouldn't be taking these pictures?
I think there's two things that this gentleman is bringing up. One is the fact that people shouldn't take these pictures is ridiculous. It's such a backwards, moralistic, judgmental thing to say. There's nothing wrong with people taking pictures of their own bodies. There's nothing wrong with them sharing them with an intimate partner. There is something incredibly wrong with somebody accessing those pictures that are meant for that context and displaying them to the world. And we know this if we think about any other type of information. When you give your credit card to a waiter, you don't have to tell that waiter, don't go and buy yourself a pet ferret with this. They know that they can only use it for one purpose, and if they use it outside of that context, that they are criminally responsible for that. We know that when you go to your doctor and you tell him all about your, symptoms of your STD, he's not supposed to go and put that on Facebook. Everybody exposes certain information to certain people or to themselves at some time, and we have expectations and we have laws that say that that is exactly normal, and everybody has the right to do that.
Well said. Thank you again, Mary Ann Franks. How can people contact you, follow you on Twitter?
On Twitter, they can follow me at MA_Franks, and they can check out the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative at cybercivilrights.org. And if they're interested specifically in our campaign to stop non-consensual pornography, to visit endrevengeporn.org.
endrevengeporn.org. Thank you again so much, Mary.
Thank you,
Always a pleasure to have you here and to speak with you about these very real issues that need to be addressed.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And I just wanted to leave everyone on close and say that, we've been calling it celebrity leaked photos, but the reality is these pictures were stolen. And the thing is, whether, you have an old school mindset where it's back in my day we weren't doing certain things, but not everyone lives a squeaky clean life. There were certain things that you have done in the privacy of your own home that you wouldn't want exposed. And think of it this way: what if that was your daughter, your wife? You know what I'm saying? The person you're with. What if your wife more than likely, let's say, had sex with someone else before? What if that person got mad and put pictures, consent, or phone calls? They just exposed your wife or your daughter or your mother or your aunt in the same exact way. You wouldn't be saying, well, you shouldn't have took it, you shouldn't have been having sex with somebody else, and you shouldn't have, it's just so silly to try to put onus on the victims here.
It's the easy way to get out. I mean, it's the easy psychological way for a lot of us to deal with the fact, and by us I mean men in this country, to deal with the fact we still have an issue with women having control of their own sexuality, and that's what essentially this is about. I mean, I have to disagree with the last caller saying these are grown women. Okay, we know that, but the context was not to display this to the rest of the world. The context was for the intimacy and privacy of their own use. And that's what the issue is. This is not castigation or blame on them. It's on us as a consumer, as a consumptive group. Why are we even entertaining this? We know it's non-consensual. So that's the question.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Carlos, did you want to chime in?
You know what? What happens in the privacy of your own home is not a public forum. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to consume anything that is basically stolen, and I don't want to, be part of a system based on, the male gender that basically disempowers women to make their own, be safe with their own bodies and be safe with their own information. I agree completely with what a well-informed guest we had. Mary was outstanding, and kudos to her. Seriously, I think that is exactly what we should be looking for as a guest.
I mean, people who think that it's okay to go after, like, to find pictures of people without a permission and look at them and then criticize them for posting those pictures,
right.
It shows a level of insecurity that
and ignorance
that is really just rival with only just the most ardent Tea Party Republicans.
Thank you for putting the caveat of Tea Party. Appreciate
I got your back. Like,
thank you.
So, I mean, just to be honest, if this is what you think, if you think it's okay to blame people when they're the victims of something, you clearly have a problem. You're one of those same people who, when a kid cuts himself because they were going down the stairs and there's like a jagged step there, you're the one that blames a kid for walking down the steps too fast. You're probably just one of those people who just, like, you'll never understand. And for that, that's fine. But just go somewhere else on your own island and stop living among the regular folk like us.
I'm so happy I work with such a fine group of men. Like, you guys, I'm just so happy about that. And I want to just say again, if you guys want to take action on this issue, we can all do something by going to endrevengeporn.org, and just making sure that we are actively pushing, telling our legislators, our representatives in the community that we need something, we need protection over stealing.
To get our attorney generals in this. I think that's what we meant by legal reform. This is not solely based on our legislators, because they're not going to do much. It's our attorney generals, our community attorneys, who can come together and say, we can lead on this particular issue. We know that when the system fails, when Congress is failing, when certain areas are failing, we have to act.
Definitely, and we have to act now. So we're going to end there. We're going to take a quick break, but we have more right here on Let Your Voice Be Heard. We'll be giving you the update and the latest on Ferguson right here on Let Your Voice Be Heard.
Do you think he was just doing that to make me jealous? Because he was totally texting me all night last night, and I don't know if it's a booty call or not. So, what do you think? Did you think that girl was pretty?
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Dress is so tacky. Who wears cheetah? It's not even summer. Why does the DJ keep on playing Summertime Sadness? After you're done in the bathroom, can we go smoke a cigarette? I really need one. But first, let me take a selfie. I should go with XX Pro or Valencia. I want to look tan. What should my caption be? I want it to be clever. How about living with my bitches, #live. I only got 10 likes in the last 5 minutes. Do you think I should take it down? Let me take another selfie.
So you like your music sometimes sweet and sometimes hot. Jazz, that is. Sweet jazz from Sugar Hill. Every Sunday from 8 p.m. until 10. Le Mans Jazz Break at 8, right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, where jazz lives.
Cover your eyes so you don't know the secret. I'm trying to
WHCR 90.3 FM, New
York. And we are back on Let Your Voice Be Heard on 90.3 FM WHCR, the voice of Harlem. Selena, you look like you were falling asleep, and when I said you jumped up real quick. Like the Batman's here.
Oh, God.
So, guys, we've had a very exciting show. Talked about a lot of things. Had two guests who I'm pretty sure had not had a cup of coffee before they called in. And we are coming to the conclusion of the show for today. And I just want to give you an update about what's happening in Ferguson. So, in case you have not heard, two more people actually have stepped forward as witnesses. And guess what their accounts pretty much coincide with? The people who said that Mike Brown ran, was shot, turned around, put his hands in the air to surrender, and was shot again, they said the same thing. But this new witness said that Mike Brown turned around, put his hands in the air, and said, okay, I surrender, I don't have a weapon. And then Darren Wilson shot him again. several more times. And also, if you guys weren't paying attention, there have been these pictures coming out of like some white guy with a swollen eye, and of course
shock alert.
Darren Wilson people were like, oh, that's Darren Wilson. Now you see why he had to shoot him 37 times. That was not Darren Wilson. Actually, that was not a picture of Darren
What
Wilson.
a
His
twist.
eye socket is not that messed up at all. His eye is okay, as far as we understand, because he didn't need to shoot this unarmed African-American child 9 to 10 times. Oh, by the way, the last person to speak to Mike Brown before he was shot by this cop, Darren Wilson, you know what Mike Brown told the guy? The guy was having a bad day. Mike Brown said, don't worry about it. God will take care of everything. I'm going to pray for you. I will see you later, and we'll pray together. And then 10 minutes later, he heard the gunshot. So yes, all of you people who are looking for ways to vilify Mike Brown because he's a black kid who just happens to be living in Missouri when it's 67% black, but they only have 3 black elected officials and 2.5 black cops, shut up. You lose. Now, here's what we need to do, because Al Sharpton's flying to Missouri and Jesse Jackson's flying to Missouri asking for money for his church. Don't ask. And all these people flying to Missouri because you want to march and take selfies next to the memorial, stop it. You have money? Find out who are the people who live in this residence, the people of color of that 67% who live in that community. Find out what positions are open in office and fund their campaign so they can get better representation. Also, Darren Wilson, the precinct he came from was actually, everyone in that precinct, every officer was fired because of how bad they were in regards to racial relations within the country in the state of Alabama. So, when this is all said and done, fire the entire Ferguson Police District and replace them with someone new. Because you know what? They just found out from the chief of police of Ferguson, who released that video that was quote-unquote of Mike Brown, when he said that, oh, I was getting so much pressure to release that video. There was no pressure. They did a Freedom of Information Request Act. Come to find out, people were asking for the subpoena for the report for what happened after they shot Mike Brown. No one asked for the video. No one knew about the video. The store clerk people did not file a police report. So yeah, fire them. If you want to help fund candidates that are going to do the right thing and fund candidates that look like people like Mike Brown, not like Mitt Romney. And other than that, guys, listen, stay informed. It's not in news, but Twitter is a beautiful thing, and my Facebook will block out its algorithms. Twitter will keep you going with Mike Brown Ferguson hashtags. But we do have to get out of here because, as you know, we have to go home, and we appreciate you guys and we love you guys, but hey, home is nice on Sundays, especially when it's Hennessy and brunch waiting for you.
Oh God.
We'll be back next week. I don't have either of those things waiting for me though. I just want to say that.
I think you just want to get done with the show so you can go back to drinking.
No, I hadn't even I drank last night.
Exactly.
This show is sponsored by Hennessy.
Right.
Hennessy.
Steely promotes Hennessy every week.
I've been meaning to promote Jameson, but then I had Hennessy last night, so it was hard.
Wow.
No, I had Caveman Sweat, E&J.
Oh God, I'm sure everyone's very
That's
interested
what I
to
call
know.
it, Caveman
we're getting
Sweat.
a
I thought it was
call
called
right
Evil
now.
Jesus. You call it Evil Jesus?
Yes, I do.
I call it
I
Caveman
don't think Hennessy's
Sweat.
going to be particularly happy promoting other brands, man.
Yeah, I know, right? They're going to fire me. They're going to fire me.
I need my salary, man.
All right, guys, we're out of here. Thank you so much for listening. As always, this is Let Your Voice Be Heard.
This is a guided meditation on parenting. Take this time to breathe deeply and close your eyes. Right now, you're completely in control. Unlike the time you and your son played basketball and you attempted to slam dunk. Or when you tried removing those raccoons from the basement. Concentrate on the soothing sound of my voice. Release the memory of when you wrestled with that beehive in your son's treehouse. Let go of the time you thought that skunk was a cat, or when you pulled into the garage with your son's bike on top of the car. Deep breaths. Deep breaths.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
The Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT of New York City, provides assistance in preparing and recovering from emergencies. CERT assists first responders and provides staffing for city shelters in response to disasters and extreme weather conditions. City College is one of the many locations for hurricane evacuation. CERT team members are local and live amongst the community, so they are always there for the people. CERT members will speak to any organization about emergency planning for the elderly, children, and the disabled. They offer workshops in creating go bags, emergency communication, and evacuation plans, and shelter-in-place kits. To learn how to prepare for emergencies, call South Harlem CERT at 917-406-6661.
Each year, 650,000 individuals are released from jails and prisons across America. There's a 67% chance that they'll be incarcerated again within 3 years. While this is a big problem, there's an even bigger solution: education. Education is the most effective response to crime, and College Initiative works to make college a realistic goal for formerly incarcerated New Yorkers. College Initiative works to help formerly incarcerated individuals to become stabilizing forces in their communities and advocates towards working for a safer New York. For more information, visit www.collegeinitiative.org.
Today, you hit the snooze bar. You checked your email. You checked your fantasy football team. You rejected an insulting trade offer. You ate your lunch. You did all the things that one normally does the day before a 175-mile-per-hour hurricane blows through your city, leaving it in a state of ruin. You never know when the day before is the day before. Prepare for tomorrow at ready.gov/today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Welcome to WHCR's Community Calendar, keeping you abreast of events in Harlem and throughout the tri-state area. The following events will take place from Friday, September 5th through Friday, September 12th, 2014. This Friday, September 5th at 6 p.m. at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture is the First Friday Meeting, the popular monthly social gathering with live music, signature drinks, and extended viewing hours for galleries. For more information on this event, visit www.nypl.org. On Saturday, September 6th at 2 p.m. at General Grant National Memorial, also known as Grant's Tomb, will be a video presentation of A History of Civil Rights in America, 1965 through 1993, followed by a discussion facilitated by a National Park Service ranger about war, the amendments, and the tensions of Reconstruction. This event is free, and for more information, call 212-666-1640. Also on Saturday, September 6th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Museum of the City of New York is the Tiled Away Family Program. Parents can bring the kids for a fun family activity exploring the architectural marvels of Guastavino tile vaulting in the Palaces for the People. Then help the little ones design their own tiled picture frame. The perfect gift for Grandparents' Day on Sunday. This program is free with admission to the museum, and for more information, visit www.mcny.org. On Sunday, September 7th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Dwyer Cultural Center will be the closing reception of the Visions of Natural Beauty exhibition, curated by Charnay Benton. An inspirational exhibition that promises to bring you to a place of remembrance and lead you to envision new ways of looking at the world. For more information about this event, call 646-780-9883. If you have an event that you would like to place on our calendar, please call 212-650-7481 or email communitycalendar@whcr.com. Submissions must be made 3 to 4 weeks prior to the event. This is Huma Saida for WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
Harlem's got its own radio station.
Once again, back is the incredible
WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
In Harlem, chances are you'll get
to know where it really all began. Singing it, swinging it, grooving that soul. It's alright with me. The people there will really fill you in. Things you've never heard before. Laying that history right in your ear. It will blow your mind. A real hip place that you all should know. Started way back long ago. It's only just a few short stops on the subway. Harlem is the place to go. So if you want to know where it all began, come along and take my hand. I'll take you to a place where I'm proud to say it's the promised land.
And Harlem is the swinging, it's the dancing, it's the singing, it's Harlem is the place to be. If you have never been there, I suggest that you begin there, and you will see the harmony.
So if you want to keep this culture alive, everybody do his part. Although it's getting hard for us to survive, keep Harlem in your heart.
Play people, badu dee dee day yado, badu babi do badi badi dee dee, badu baby daddy do be dee, I'll see dee bob do be babe. Balo babe, bodo ba ilia ide bab, balo do babe, balo ba daddy lee up, babi biggie that we will lead it down. Shawe, see the paper, say do biggie de ilia ida, bado babi biggie, balo babi do biggie ba hip do ilia de, balo ba daddy biggie de ka, shage see de bed of do be bloody map, balo ba ilia ida be biggie lay up, and ba daddy lead it let me biggie that page up the ba bed o ba bed o.
All you get to know where it really all began. Singing it, swinging it, grooving that soul. It's alright with me. The people, they will really fill you in. Things you've never heard before. Laying that history right in your ear. It will blow your mind.
In Harlem is the swinging, it's the dancing, it's the singing, it's Harlem is the place to be.
If you have never been there, I suggest that you begin there, and you will see the harmony. So if you want to keep this culture alive, everybody do his part. Although it's getting hard for us to survive, keep Harlem in your heart.
Evans Thompson and True Story, Harlem. That starts things off on a Sunday afternoon here in New York City on WHCR 90.3 FM. I'm Michael G. Haskins, and this is In the Neighborhood, a show dedicated to news for, about, and of interest to the community. Evans Thompson and True Story, starting off the program, as I usually do. I got my ancestors with me, and I do. Each and every day I rise, I have my ancestors with me. Thank you so much for tuning in to the broadcast today. We have a number of things that we're going to be looking at. You know, Election Day is coming on the 9th, day after tomorrow, so we're going to be talking a little bit about that, and then something new, a new feature that I've added to the broadcast. So let's get started, shall we? As we do each and every day, I'd like to start with some news briefs, and this date in history. So we'll do that. First, I want to say a happy birthday to my son, Maurice. Happy birthday, Maurice. I just called him a little while ago. He's on his way to church. Yes, he's a good church boy, and he's on his way to church. So I wanted to wish him a happy birthday on the air. In election news, at least 7 companies who received more than $15 million in grants from the state have donated $1.25 million in donations to the Cuomo campaign since 2010. According to a Daily News exclusive, aides to the governor said the grants represent a, quote, fraction, unquote, of the more than $2.2 billion in funding distributed by the state regional economic development councils, and that Cuomo plays no formal role in the selections. And they say the projects are recommended by the 10 regional councils in a system first created by Cuomo in 2011 to foster competition. The Empire State Development Corporation, one of those nebulous private public authorities completely under the governor's control, scores the recommendations and selects the winners. The aides also say the system is superior to the previous way state legislators funded member item projects in their districts, vetted or not. The 2 key examples cited in the article were $1 million to Taylor Biomass LLC in Orange County in 2013 to build a waste-to-energy facility. The company's president more than $100,000 to the campaign since 2010 and $34,000 in 2014 alone. The company and affiliates donated a separate $50,000 and $12,500 this year. BFC Partners of Brooklyn won $3.5 million last year for a development project in Staten Island featuring designer outlets and a luxury hotel. BFC has donated $25,000 to Cuomo's campaign this year. 3 partners at BFC, including well-connected developer Donald Capocia, have given a total of $81,500 since 2010. Late last week, Mayor Bill de Blasio signed legislation to increase oversight over the use of solitary confinement at the Rikers Island jail complex, the New York Times reported. It would require the Corrections Department to publish quarterly reports starting in January disclosing the number of inmates in solitary, the length of their stay, and whether the inmates were injured or assaulted. Mr. de Blasio said the law would help us manage the jails more effectively and address the problems that were left to us. The article said inmate advocates were hoping for specific measures to prevent using isolation as a means to punish the incarcerated, as well as some way to rein in guard violence against prisoners, but the law does not include them. And finally, and this is from the New York Post, it appears a Brooklyn City Council member who owed $1,500 to the landlord of her district office managed to have him arrested after he changed the locks. The landlord, a retired city firefighter, said he hadn't been paid by Council member Darlene Mealy since April. Mealy confirmed she is currently in a, quote, dispute, unquote, with her landlord. Unfortunately, he had to be arrested in connection with this dispute, she said in a statement. In retaliation, the landlord now has 3 giant signs hanging from the building's fire escape declaring Mealy a deadbeat tenant. The article reported another sign said, quote, "This is another prime example of one local elected official who has failed me, you, and this community," unquote. The paper failed to mention that, ironically, Mealy once chaired the council's Contracts Committee. The monthly rent is $1,250. And on this date in history, September 7th, 1957, Barbara Giddings organized the first New York meeting held for the Daughters of Bilitis, a pioneer female gay rights organization. The group was founded 2 years earlier in San Francisco. And on this date in 1990, 2 British peace activists, Stephen Hancock and Mike Hutchinson, known as the Upper Hayford Plowshares, were sentenced to 15 months in prison for disabling an F-111 bomber in Oxford, England. And on this date in history, in 1992, South African troops killed at least 24 people and injured 150 more at an African National Congress, ANC, rally on the border of Ciskei in South Africa. 50,000 ANC supporters had turned out to demand Ciskei's reabsorption into South Africa. Ciskei was one of 10 black homelands so designated to keep blacks from claiming citizenship in South Africa itself. They were a legal faction not recognized by any other country that was part of the racially separatist apartheid regime. And finally, on this date in history, September 7th, 1996, 2 women were arrested for trespass at the Norfolk, Virginia Naval Base after walking into the base with a banner reading, quote, "Love your enemies," unquote.